In the words of Leslie, hello, her people. My name is Mo, I'm her husband, and yeah, this is that video. The one that we hope we would never have to do, but Leslie had metastatic breast cancer for over 9 years, and she fought breast cancer for nearly 19. She's definitely a fighter, but the cancer stole her, in her words. I kind of want to go through the last, say, week and a half of her life, because that's what she would have done. So in the spirit of all her videos, I'd like to take you through about a week of her life. Shouldn't take long. And also in the spirit of her videos, I'd like to give you some questions to ask as you go through the same thing. As you enter these facilities that she was in, we learned a lot. And we just, she always wanted to help people, so here we go. Now, it's been 11 days since she passed, so we're kind of getting through this. And her daughter Anna, her son Eric, and his family, and so we're hopefully moving forward and trying to figure out what's next in our lives. But there were some things that you can learn, and so let's just kind of walk through this together. I'm not as good as she was on all this stuff, so I made some notes. I didn't want to forget anything, and I do want to let you know that Gracie's here, like she has been in many of Leslie's videos, and Sadie's here. Say hi. Okay. Well, there they are. I'm sure they'll poke their little noses as we move through. So on Wednesday, September 2nd, we were here at home, and Leslie had great pain. I mean, we couldn't control the pain with all the strong meds that we had here, the prescription meds that we had. We called the doctor, and they moved her CT scan or CAT scan up from Friday to Thursday, so it was the very next day. So we went in the morning, we got the CAT scan, and they read it immediately. We spoke to the doctor immediately after that, and they confirmed that the cancer had spread further into her lungs, into the upper parts. Of course, it's been in the lower, and then it's been working its way up. And that's some of the pain. The other part of the pain is all those little lumps in her liver, where she just had so many of those tumors, and they've grown quite a bit, and she has many more. And so the pain throughout her torso, which is where the pain was that she was feeling, it was considerably worse. On Thursday the 3rd, that's when we saw the doctor, and we went through the conversation. The doctor was really encouraging Leslie to stop the treatments, because the treatments weren't working. As you know, she went through the clinical trial, and after that they had said there was nothing they can do, but Leslie, being the fighter, said, no, I want to go one more different chemo. Let's see if it works, because I'm a fighter, and they agreed that they would fight along her side as long as she wanted to fight. So that's when she went on the Gemzar for about a month, one cycle, and then this whole scan went through. They again said that there's really nothing out there medicine-wise that's going to reverse what she has, or even slow it down or stop it. So the doctor was trying to say that during our conversation, but Leslie couldn't hear it. She wanted to try something else, or do second cycle, actually, is what she wanted to do. So I went and spoke with the doctor after our appointment. I did let Leslie know that we were going to do that, and I asked her just point blank, what are we looking at? And she said 3 days to maybe a week. And so it had really spread quite a bit in that month, and it's really been over a period of 6 months. So knowing that, I called my son, and he came out, and his wife and daughter came out, and we were able to spend a week or so with him, making good memories, because she was coherent, and My daughter had been here for several weeks prior, and so as a family we made some memories, we spent some time together. It was all great. The time was precious. It was real important to have that time, and we're just thankful for all of our employers for letting us have that time, and it's helped us get through this quite a bit. So on Saturday, the 5th of September 2020, we were at home. We couldn't control the pain with medicines that we had at home, and after speaking with the on-call doctor, because it was in the evening, we decided to send her into a PCU, which is a palliative care unit at the hospital, which they said is designed to control the pain, and that's what they do. They control the pain so you're not feeling anything, and that sounded great. That was Saturday night, so we decided to do that, but the only way into the hospital was through the ER because it was the evening. So we went to the ER, drove up there, and that caused its own challenges. Currently they're on COVID lockdown, so I couldn't go in with her. So she went in screaming, saying, no, I need my husband. And after a while, the ER people, after they did their initial testing and vitals and all that, called the doctor that sent us there, and they did allow me in, so that was great. We were in the ER for a little bit, 5 hours in a little rectangular room painted gray with holes in the wall. It's a very reputable hospital, and I don't know where this room came from. So anyway, we were there for 5 hours just sitting, checking vitals, doing things like that, and they said they would move us into the PCU, but they couldn't do that until the morning shift at 8 a.m. So they did do that eventually. It was 5 hours in that little room, kind of scary, and not a place you want to be when you're going through what she's going through. We ended up in the PCU, and it's kind of like a wing of the hospital, and the wing of the hospital, it was away from everything else. They did allow pets and things, but there really are some questions that you might want to ask before entering a PCU, palliative care unit. First off, is the environment loud? We experienced some of that at night at 8 p.m. when the shift change happened, and Leslie, of course, was trying to sleep and take care of herself, but it was loud. Things like, can you have your family there? And how many family members can be there? And what about pets? Can you bring your puppies or your kittens or whatever you might have? And visitors, how many of those can come up? And are there visiting hours? But more importantly, there's two things that were probably most important to us. What type of medicine will they be using? And, will there be pills? Will there be a pump for the medicine, or will it be IV? IV, of course, they just put the medicine on a post and it drips in, based on, how they set the machine to drop the meds in the body. Pills you have to wait for, because basically if you're in pain, you have to request them, and they come and they say and they evaluate, then they get permission from a doctor, and then the pharmacy can order them, and then 20-30 minutes later you have your meds, which are in the pill form, which are difficult. At least they were difficult for Leslie to get down because her throat was kind of closing up. So the ideal pain med delivery system for Leslie would have been a pump, where if she starts feeling pain, she can push a button and it would deliver an immediate dose along with the standard dose that just happens over a period of an hour. They didn't give her that, so we were in a situation where we had the IV drip, which was okay, and pills, which were not okay. The other thing is, when you go into an in-hospital PCU, you need to ask this question, because this was a deal breaker for us, and we didn't realize it until after our second night, and that is, are they going to wake you up every hour, every few hours to take your vitals, your blood pressure, temperature, things of that nature, and then come back in to give you some pills, or adjust the IV pump, or drain the catheter container? I mean, all of them waking up periods at night really distressed Leslie. She was sleeping nicely finally after getting the meds she needed, and yet they'd come in and they'd wake her up. And I think it's because it's part of the hospital, and in a hospital they're trying to cure people, and so they have these regulations, and I'm just assuming this, they have these regulations where they have to check on you every so often. And that's what they did in the PCU, but in Leslie's situation, we're not there to cure her, because there was no cure. We were there to just make her comfortable. Yet they weren't able to do that. So on Tuesday the 8th, Leslie decided being woken up at night wasn't for her. Excuse me. So the alternative was home hospice. We thought it was great. Bring her home, we can take care of her, they'll put a pump on her, we can push the button for her, or she can push the button to deliver more pain meds. She wouldn't need the IV, and she wouldn't need pills. And so we did that. Now, we're still in the hospital, and the home hospice sales rep, which you'd think would be a nurse or something, and maybe was, but they are salespeople, so be careful. It's a stressful situation, because they're trying to sell you on their hospice versus someone else's home hospice. We didn't really have a choice, because, we were there, we needed to move out of the hospital, and this place was recommended, and so here we are, right? We asked if she could have a pump. They said yes. We confirmed that Leslie didn't want to take pills, and that she didn't want crushed pills. And they assured us that they could take care of us. So we went home on the evening of the 8th and did okay managing the pain, but we were still managing her with the same pain meds that she had before she entered the PCU. So nothing had changed with the home meds, but we did make it through the night. She woke up in some pain, and but it was okay, because we were able to get her to swallow a pill, which was she almost choked on it. It was crazy. And then the next morning, the home hospice people came. I would have thought this person was a nurse. I'm not sure that they were. I think, again, they were just an employee of the home hospice. We spoke to them about the meds, the fact that we wanted liquid meds, or something that can dissolve under the tongue. We didn't want the suppositories, because that was a dignity thing that Leslie said. She doesn't want us doing that. So crushed up meds and that sort of thing were out. The gentleman assured us that there would be a pump, that we could deliver it, or that there would be liquid meds. And so that was about 10 to 11 o'clock in the morning. That evening around 8:30, we received the shipment of all the home hospice meds, and literally everything was a pill. So we weren't able to take any of those, So what we were able to do was get down one of her little pills, pain meds, and we got that down before bed. So we were thankful for that, but we were very disappointed. And we were even more disappointed at 2 a.m. You know what? Before I get to that, let me share some questions that you might want to ask for an in-home hospice facility. Okay. One is, and most important for Leslie, was, can the patient have control over the pain meds using a pump and a button? Trust me, when you're at that point, you are not going to want to sip water. You're not going to want to take a pill because you probably can't. You need the pain meds through an IV or through the port like Leslie had. And the next question is, when will you deliver the pump? When will it be connected to the patient? You have to have that right when you get home or before you get home. The other thing that was concerning to us, but we never used, was when you call the home hospice nurse for some help, are you reaching a call center of someone who's going to say, okay, tell me your problem, and then I'll have someone call you back, a nurse or a doctor? Or are you calling a call center where you're speaking to a nurse? That's really important to know the difference. And because when you're in pain and you're in home hospice, it's not like you're going to call 911. It's like your loved one is going to be in pain. So you have to know how quickly you can get pain med adjustments, how quickly the nurses can show up to your house. How long does it take to get a call back from a nurse if it's that sort of a, facility, And just understand that, and this is something we didn't do, when that sales rep shows up in the hospital to sell their home hospice, you should Google them, because we did not do that, and it turned out that the one we used had low ratings and bad comments, and we should have done that before we agreed to see them. So we basically experienced low ratings and bad comments. That was our experience. And we asked, if you're going through this, if you're at end of life, do this Googling and checking of ratings before you enter the hospital or way in advance, so you know who to call and you have their phone number. And when the hospital or someone recommends a company, you can say, no, I'm going with this company. They already know I'm calling. Okay, that is really good, and it relieves a lot of stress. So we had home hospice for 2 nights. The first night where we gave her our pills that she had, and the second night where we were able to get that pill down. Well, on Thursday the 10th at 2 a.m., Leslie woke up screaming in pain. I mean, literally blood curdling screams. She was holding her head was really hot, and her neck, and she was screaming in pain, and she said, give me pain meds, and there was nothing I could do. We didn't have a pain med because she was screaming, exhaling. How am I going to get a pill down? Boy, it'd be nice to have something liquid or a pump. Wouldn't that be great? I tell you, when you're helpless like that, and you really want to help your loved one, boy, it's a feeling of helplessness that I've never felt before. So I called 911, and the ambulance came. Of course, she's in home hospice, so they can't give any meds. They have to call to give the meds, and they called a doctor, and they eventually gave her a dose of Dilaudid, which was great. That calmed her down. We could see when they closed the ambulance doors, they had the lights on, we could see her. We were following the ambulance to the ER, and we could see the moment when her pain went away, and then she just was speaking with the paramedic in the ambulance, just like it was nothing, right? She had a drink of water. We could tell she was drinking and stuff like that, so it was great. Liquid meds, Dilaudid. Wow, we should have had that at home. So anyway, we went to a different ER than the previous one, and it was fantastic. It was a really good experience. Again, she had to stay in the ER because it was early in the morning until the shift arrived, and they could move her up to a room. And they gave her this great big room because they said, however many people you need, you can bring your pets. It was a really good experience at this ER. It was one we had never been to before, but it was local. They kept her pain meds under control. However, when the pain started to reach and you could just see her forehead crinkle up, and she was in pain, and she was grunting, and she asked for more med. You have to call the nurse with a button, and they show up, and then they have to call a doctor to prescribe the meds, and then you have to have the pharmacy prescribe the med, and then the nurse comes in, and it's 20 or 30 minutes before you get those pain meds. And let me tell you, Dilaudid with Leslie, when it starts to wear off, it's not, a gentle curve. It's like a step. When it starts to wear off, it's done, and she will start screaming. So you have to have that medicine really fast, and they realized they weren't getting it fast enough, but that's not what they do. They're in the business of healing people, and Leslie wasn't there to be healed. So we spoke to them and had a conversation, and we went into we agreed to move her to an inpatient hospice. This means that it is actually a hospice facility, not hospital, and it's not in your home, it's in a facility. That was one of the best decisions we had made, and had we known about it, we would have moved her right into that instead of the home hospice. When we entered, she was coherent, and she says, "This is a great place, this is exactly what I want. Can I stay here?" And we assured her that she would stay there. It was exactly what all of us needed. They had control over her pain. They ordered a pump right away, so that later, after a few hours, she had the pump. And the pump had a big tank of Dilaudid, and whenever she felt pain, she could push it. And twice a day, they would take the readings on how many times the button was pushed, and if it was pushed a lot, they would just increase the dose. Because the machine gives a dose over every hour, and then you could push it to get an extra dose. And so they would adjust how much the regular dose was twice a day, and it was great, and it was easy, and eventually we didn't have to push the button so much, but every day they had to increase her dose. Her pain was getting really bad, and after 2 days in hospice, the meds were so strong that she really wasn't coherent. We managed the pain. My daughter and I and my son were pushing the button for her because we could hear the grunts. And she stayed asleep for a couple of days. That was great. Couple of questions you might want to ask an inpatient hospice. How many patients per nurse? In ours, we had like 2 nurses per 1 patient. It was crazy. Whenever you needed anything, they were right there. But there were so many nurses and not a whole lot of patients in there. It was great. Will you have control over the pain meds? Of course, with the pump you do. Otherwise, it's other stuff we've already talked about. Will they be waking you to take vitals? They shouldn't be, because it doesn't really matter at this point. And ours, they didn't take all the vitals. So they came in twice a day, checked her heart rate. They checked her pulse and her blood pressure, which we could see was going down. Her pulse was going up, blood pressure was going down. Pulse goes up when your heart starts to work harder. That's just what happens towards the end. But in our case, they didn't do the vitals. They would open the door a couple times a night and just peek in to make sure everyone was okay. My daughter and I were there in a room, and that was all they did. And that was fantastic because it didn't wake Leslie up. How many members can stay overnight? Right? In our case, they allowed 2 to stay overnight, and 4 total visitors during the day. And this is all the COVID stuff, right? Until the very end. Sadie, come. All right, all the dogs are going outside now. Oh, love them dogs. Until the very end. And hey, Broken. Come. Until the very end. Come here. This is Sadie. We all know Sadie. Come here. At the very end, because they know when a person's about to, you know, be at the end of their life, they allowed us to have as many visitors as we wanted. But she didn't want visitors. She just wanted her close family and her best friend. So there were really 3 or 4 people there at the max. We had a couple bring a meal, so there were 5 people at one point. But other than that, it was just 3 or 4 of us. And of course, do they accept your insurance? That's always a benefit. It's, you know, not the biggest deal in that particular point of life. More important is to have a good facility. So she kept her pain under control for the 4 days she was in there. In the last 2 days, come here, sweetie, quit barking. The dogs outside are barking, probably at a butterfly, and it makes this one bark. Don't bark, okay? So she fell asleep for the last 2 days, and then eventually she passed. And Anna and I were with her. Her family was there with her, and we could watch her breathing. Instead of being down here, or it just moved up here, and then it was just right here. This was all the lung movement she had. It was very little, but we could see her pulse. It was very strong. And Anna and I were sitting there, and something just changed in the room, and I looked over, and that was it. So on September 14th, at 8:46, she was pronounced, and was the end of a legacy, a really good legacy of helping people. Helping all of you. You're a big part of her life, and I just want to thank you for being with her. You gave her a purpose. Not that she needed another purpose, but you gave her a purpose. And I thank you all for that. I'll tell you something we found very helpful in the last 2 days, last 4 days, or the last week, is we knew what Leslie wanted and what she didn't want in her final moments. Leslie spoke and made a list. My daughter wrote it down, and Leslie signed it on the 9th. And Leslie said she didn't want any crushed pills, because sometimes they crush pills and give it to you, or they crush pills and they give it to you as a suppository. That was a quality of life thing she didn't want to go through, and she didn't want to put us through. Of course, after saying that to the home hospice people, they sent a bunch of pills, and the gentleman actually said, well, you can crush them and give them as a suppository. So we knew they weren't listening. She wanted her immediate family and best friend with her, and we met that obligation. Also, she wanted her dogs by her side, and we did bring Sadie and Gracie to hospice, inpatient hospice, on the first day. Sadie was really nervous because she knew something was going down. She could feel it. Gracie was really nervous and wouldn't stop barking. Anyone walk in the room, she would growl at them. So we had to take Gracie home, and we did. But Sadie stayed with her for the full 4 days. She slept on her lap. She licked her arms and her hands and her cheeks and her neck. And Leslie didn't like her feet covered with the blankets, so Sadie would go down to her lower part of her legs, below her knees, lay there really long like those dachshunds do, and lick her toes and lick her feet. And it's like she's trying to heal her. Sadie was there when she passed. And the other thing she requested going into all this was medicine through her port. And she got that. So we believe that we did everything she asked for. And we did it well. I've known her since she was 13 years old. So It's really hard knowing someone since you were 13, and she passed away at 54. She'll be 55 next month. And your best friend, and your daughter's best friend, your son's friend, best friend. She was a best friend to a lot of people out there, and that says something big. And well, I'll tell you what, if you have a moment to go to her memorial, I'll post the link in the description below. It's smithfamilyfcs.com. And just post something kind about her, maybe something that she's done, maybe she's touched your life in some way. That would be really nice to have there. That's really all I have, and appreciate you all tagging along with her. So with that, Leslie's Cancer Confessions is signing off forever. Love you all. Bye.